Welcome to this week's episode of Eye of the Swarm, your deep dive into anything and everything related to Yellowjacket athletics. With the big sound Matt Johnson, I am John Garver, Season 5, Episode 14, Playoff Time.
Playoff time, yep. Everybody just about is in the playoffs now.
Yep.
I think, well, almost. Men's and women's
Well,
basketball.
technically there's one team in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, technically.
But
everybody is coming upon playoffs.
Correct, or clinch their spot, or...
Yep, and we have 4 teams that are going to be in the playoffs. We know that much, probably, anyway.
Well, technically you have 6.
Yeah,
Because
that's true.
don't forget track and field.
That's true as well.
So,
that's true as well. But I mean,
over the next couple of weeks, you're going to have 6 teams in the postseason.
Yes, there will be 6 teams that will be actually competing in the postseason. Although, is the UMAC championship, does that count as postseason, or is that just the culmination of the season?
Well, both.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose it could
Because
be.
the postseason is the culmination of the regular season.
That's true.
So
yeah, it's a little. I've never quite.
I think it's
sure
semantics.
How it's, I'm never quite sure how to approach it with like cross country here,
right?
Because that's part of their regular. It's part of their season, right? But
it is.
Yeah,
but
okay. So
anyway,
we have a bunch of teams that are going to be playing in their respective postseasons coming up here, and spring sports, of course, as we talked about last week, are in the throes of their preseason right now. So. We're in that crossover part of the year, but this is where it starts getting fun for the winter sports.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, we've got some teams that have put themselves in a really good position, and then we've got some other teams that have had a little bit of a struggle down the stretch here. So a little bit of everything that's kind of expected, I suppose.
Yep.
I'm going to start out and just highlight women's basketball.
Yep.
Because the performance they put on last weekend was really impressive.
Yeah.
And they're just continuing to roll right along. I mean, they've won 7 in a row now. 1 loss in the conference going in the final weekend, and they have clinched the number 1 seed now for the conference tournament. The only question now is if they're going to win the conference title outright.
Right.
It'd be the first time, I think, since 1819, I want to say. Either that or 1920. It's one of those two.
I think it's 1819.
1819, yeah. But, I mean, their performances last weekend at Morris and at Crown were very, very impressive.
Yep.
And they're continuing.
Especially that Morris game.
Yeah, that Morris game was, that was a gut check game for them.
Yep.
Morris was the only team that was going to be able to catch them. And because they have the tiebreaker over everybody else, and now they have a tiebreaker on Morris as well. They jumped out to a big lead in that game, and then Morris came back, but UWS did enough, like they have been down the stretch, to get the win. They were very balanced in that game, and then against Crown the next day, they came out and took care of business pretty quickly.
Yep.
But they're playing their best basketball at the right time. And if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year if they would have been more than likely going to be the conference champions, I would have probably said no.
Right.
Because we weren't quite sure where they were going to be. We knew that they were probably going to be, in the running for a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. But the job that Emily has done has been fantastic. And watching them grow, it's still a young team. I mean, they've got 1 senior on the squad.
Right.
It's been amazing to watch it, really. Men's basketball also did themselves some big favors last weekend.
Yes, they did.
And they, they're an interesting squad. And I was thinking about this the other day. They're 16-7 now. 6 of their 7 losses have come at home. They're undefeated on the road. They're 8-0 on the road this year, and 1-1 in neutral court games. So when they're on the road, they have not lost yet. They're 8-0 in road games, which is something you don't see real often. They're only 7-6 at home.
Wow.
So
I guess I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So it's been a little bit topsy turvy, but they put together 2 really impressive wins last week and had a really big comeback against Morris on Friday, and then they took it to Crown, and that was nice to see because that Crown team really frustrated them the first time around.
Ooh, did they ever?
Yeah, and to see them come back, be focused, and really go at Crown and really take control of that game in the beginning and not really give it up. Yeah. After that,
I was at the table that game, and that was a frustrating day.
Yeah, that was a very frustrating day, and to see that they followed away,
yep.
and then came back with a measure of revenge. That was good to see. So both the basketball teams went a combined 4-0 last weekend. The women are now 1 win away from clinching the conference crown, which would mean, of course, as the number 1 seed, which they're going to be at home anyway. But
yeah, they are the 1.
Yeah, as long as they keep winning in the UMAC tournament, they will be at home.
Yep.
So, I mean, possibility of maybe even an NCAA tournament bid in there. Knock on wood. I mean, we're still got a lot to play here because both those teams, men and women, are going to be playing Martin Luther and Bethany Lutheran this coming weekend. And,
right.
There's more on the line for the men.
Yep.
The men right now are number 2 all alone, behind Bethany, who won the conference, and then there's 3 teams that are 7-5 or right around there. Behind them. So there's 5 teams
going after 3 spots.
Yeah, exactly.
All within a game of each other.
But UWS men are in a good position.
Yes, they are.
To go back to the conference and a good, almost depending on how things go, they could be at home again.
They could be at home. They could be at home as the 2 or the tournament altogether.
Yep, depending on how things go this weekend. So there's a lot on the line here coming up. But the women will be at home, and for more on the playoff game, you can go to the website because we'll find out who the Yellowjacket women will be hosting in the first round of the tournament. So those 2 teams are in. Women's hockey, big bounce back for them.
Yes.
Finally, the losing streak is over.
The big sigh of relief.
13 in a row is now gone.
Program record. Yep. Losing skid is done.
And they swept Stevens Point last weekend, which was huge.
That was really big.
And they've got Northland this coming week, but that was, if nothing else, a really big confidence builder for them. They hadn't played poorly for the most part during that streak.
No, they couldn't win.
Yeah, they just couldn't get. I mean, you and I did a couple of their games, and they played well in both the games that we did.
Yep.
And they still lost those games.
There was always something that derailed them a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So 2 nice wins. They sweep Stevens Point this year. I think it's the first time that's happened
in a while.
Yeah. So that was nice. They got Northland this weekend.
Plus, it gave them the tiebreaker on Stevens Point. So going into this weekend, now they need 1 point.
Yeah, and they've got 2 games to get it against Northland.
Yep. They need 1 out of 6 to secure the 3 spot.
Yep.
Which then they don't have to play in that first round game.
Exactly. Excuse me. And men's hockey, opposite end of the spectrum, unfortunately.
Yep.
And now they have to go on the road to play UW River Falls in the first round. Mm-hmm. You were there. Mm-hmm. Give you a report on the games.
They played well.
Okay.
They really did. I was frustrated a bit on Friday with some of the stuff I was seeing, but at the end of the day, it was a really good hockey game.
Okay.
And they played well. They played well enough to win that game.
Okay.
They did. Saturday, they played even better.
Okay.
Out of the 6 periods, I think they were the better team in 4.
Okay.
I really do. And I'm not just being a homer when I say that.
Right. Yep.
They handily outshot Stevens Point on Saturday.
Yeah.
It truly is a game of inches.
Mm-hmm.
And once in each game, that inch came into play. And, in a not-so-good way for us. And then 15 seconds later, Stevens Point got a goal. And it just happened to be the game-winning goal each time.
Yep.
So it was a game of inches. But they didn't play poorly. They did not. They played 2 really good games down there. They went toe-to-toe with the top team in the conference.
Yeah.
So if they play each night like they did this past weekend, I should say, they'll still win games.
Yeah.
They can be just fine. They can go into River Falls and win 2 games if they play like they did last weekend.
Okay.
Because at some point, maybe I'm wrong, at some point the bounces do even out.
Right.
And this team just hasn't gotten bounces, for the last month.
Yeah.
So
we'll
we'll see.
Yep.
But it's playoffs. The slate is clean, so we don't need to talk about goal droughts and
all that stuff. Now we reset.
It's a reset. Exactly.
You have to play who you have in front of you.
Yep.
And do the best you can to get the win.
Yep.
So that's it. So men's hockey is officially into their postseason. Women's hockey and men's and women's basketball have 1 more weekend to go, and then they will be into their respective conference tournaments. Again, all of that will be, all those matchups will be, decided this weekend.
Yep.
So, stay tuned to the website for all that stuff. And then like you said, you got track and field. They hosted the Midday Classic this past weekend. Men won 3 events. Always a big day because it was also Alumni Day.
Yep.
So the Midday Classic is always an emotional, meet for the team anyway. Mm-hmm. And then having alumni is also a big deal. So
right.
But the Yellowjacket men performed well.
Yep.
And they'll be in search of another conference title. Women will be right there too. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Men's and women's tennis both played Bethel. The women lost, but the men won.
It's a nice win for the men.
Yeah, beat them 6-3. And I think they're starting to get their mojo back a little bit. I had a little bit. The first weekend was a little tough, but against McAllister, they were able to get a split against Wartburg.
Yep.
But McAllister's really good, and then come out and beat Bethel that's a nice win.
Mm-hmm.
So that sets them up a little bit. Now they're 3-2, and the women are 3-4.
3-4 now.
Yeah, 3-4 now. So they're coming right along, and they've got some matches coming up. And is there anybody I'm forgetting?
No,
that's everybody.
That's everybody.
So that's what happened last week. But yeah, we're into that fun time of the year.
It is. It's a good time of the year. It's a good time for us as broadcasters. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the fun
exactly.
stuff.
This is the fun stuff that we get to do. And both John and I have playoff broadcasts coming up. So for more information on that, of course, you can always go to the fan page as well and go to Broadcast Central. Those games will be added to playoff games. John's already on there. My playoff games or games will be added as we go too. So
Yep.
keep, if you're looking for broadcast information on that, that's where you can find it. So yeah, this is, like I said, this is where the rubber hits the road, and but it looks like the women are going to hang a banner. The women's basketball team is going to hang a banner. At least, well, at the very least, they're going to hang a banner.
No, they are hanging one.
Yeah, but if they get one win this weekend against either Martin Luther or Bethany Lutheran, they'll win it. They'll clinch it outright.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
Yep, that is real cool.
Yeah.
It's been a really good 2-year run for Emily. She's done
She's done a fantastic job. She should be coach of the year hands down.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
So yeah, that was the week that was.
That's good. It was a little bad, but
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, usually you take the good with the bad, but there was more good than bad.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so,
absolutely.
With that being the case, we're more than happy to take it.
Yep. We're going to take a break, and when we come back on Eye of the Swarm, we're going to head out to the softball diamond. Coach Fracker will be joining us, along with a player to be named later. I never know who they're going to have until they actually show up here.
They actually show up.
Coach Fracker and a player to be named will be joining us in the roundtable segment. It'll be coming up right after this. You are watching Eye of the Swarm.
Find your passion. Find your people. Find your purpose. Find your superior.
We're back on the roundtable segment of this week's Eye of the Swarm, and it's time for us to move to the diamond, if you will, talking softball.
It is a diamond.
It is a diamond, true. But softball, just a couple of weeks.
It's coming.
A couple of weeks
Yeah,
away.
3
Coach
weeks.
Fracker, Ellie Machal with us, and we might actually get a spring softball season this year.
We might.
Yay!
Through all of the consternation about the lack of snow and the lack of cold weather, I've never seen both TJ Oaks and Melissa Fracker any happier than they are right now.
No.
Because they were taking ground balls in January.
In January. Outdoor practice in January.
How was that for you, Ellie? I mean, what was it like?
Have you ever done that
Yeah, have
before?
you ever done that before?
No, never been outside in January.
I mean, we're breaking new ground here. Mm-hmm. Now, we still have several weeks to go.
We've got some,
Yeah, so
still plenty of
I don't
time
want
for
to
Ma Nature to step
I don't
in
want to
and do
get too far
something.
ahead of ourselves here, but I mean, how wacky is that?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. This is pretty wacky.
Yeah, no, I talked to TJ. I'm like, we deserve this after the last 2 years. Like, please, just a decent winter.
I mean,
yeah,
and it's
we've
not
been
just that
super
there's no
lucky.
snow, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's the fact that it's like in the 40s.
It's warm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's usually we don't get to practice outside till Florida, and the first time we get to do cutoffs on a field is our first game. So that's usually how it works.
Yep.
But yeah, this year we're inside and outside, which has been fun, and I think it's also just brings a little bit more energy, right, to be able to go outside and hit fly balls and ground balls and be able to hit front toss on the field and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a huge advantage.
How much does it kind of advance your training to be, instead of waiting till Florida, which is still a month away?
Yep.
To okay, you've been outside a couple times already. There's a good chance through the end of February. It looks pretty good. You're going to be
Yep.
able to go out again. So it puts you in a much better position heading into those games down in Oshkosh, which
Yeah.
might not even have to be in a dome.
Yeah.
It's so true.
That would be
Think about that.
yeah,
Ah,
right?
that just blew your
Yeah.
mind.
Wow.
Well, because I think they've been
Awesome.
even warmer than we have been.
They have
haven't
been.
Yeah.
And they have a dirt field, but their field's beautiful. It's where we went for regionals this past year. So it is a beautiful field. So who knows? We'll see kind of where it takes us. But I think the combination between the 24 days last year, which was awesome for spring sports, and then being able to get outside, like we've progressed so much faster than we normally have. I think the 24 days was big because we got to continue to be together as a team through the entire first semester. So all of the things that you typically are doing the first 2 weeks of practice, we got to do the entire semester. So that's been huge. I also think we have a lot of returners, and that's kind of made a big difference too.
Explain that,
Yep.
because I think for the people, it's a big change that came from the
Huge
NCAA.
change,
yeah.
And so explain
Yeah.
that, what it was and how the 24 days changed everything.
Yeah, so typically we have our traditional and our non-traditional. So the first semester we used to have 16 days that you have to get done in either 4 or 5 weeks. So you are cramming in practices 4 days a week until the middle of October, and then as coaches, we weren't allowed to be with our team anymore. So here you go, I'm with you for 4 weeks almost every day, and after that, it's like, sorry, like, can't coach you. We could do
Ellie
leadership
who?
and academics. Yeah. So the NCAA this year made a rule change, and I'm so grateful for it. We get 24 days the first semester to use however we'd like. There's some restrictions, how many days per week, or you can roll it over into the next semester. So we used 22 days the first semester, and that was once a week for us. Usually there was open gym time without coaches, obviously, but our open gyms turned into actual team practices, and we got to just work on little things, just our techniques and tiny skills and fundamentals, which was huge. So I think that is a huge piece of how far we've progressed, and then getting to get outside has just been a huge boost to what is already an exciting season, I would say. So, yeah.
From a player standpoint, how was that different?
Well, in the fall, the open gyms were really, like, not there. Like, everyone showed up 10 minutes. We hit a little bit, threw a little bit, and then we all left. So now, we were able to start this season in a better spot, and we didn't have to do, like, a whole bunch of conditioning. And, like, oh, yeah, this is how you do a ground ball. Yay! We got to actually take ground balls, like, right away. Like, we jumped into it way faster.
Well, it's those little things like that do make a difference, because, I mean, at this point last year, they were basically in the field house.
At this point last year, you're looking out the window going, we are in here until April.
We don't know when we're going to be able to actually get on a field
right.
And actual play on an actual field for a while. So, I mean, that must have been nice to be able to just, like, have an ability now to actually, like, I don't want to say it's like game conditions, but at least go outside and play on, get some ground balls on turf, which is, you guys' home field is turf. So it's, you guys didn't really, like I said, even play on your own field when did you have your first practice on your field?
April 14th.
Okay.
Last year.
Yeah.
April 14th. This year it was January, and we got to practice outside in November too this past semester. Yep. So, yeah, we were inside for 2 practices in December, and then we've been inside for a handful at this point because of just cold temperatures outside. But, yeah, we've had the ability to go in and out basically the entire year, which has just made, I think, a huge difference just in our ability. I mean, softball and baseball, it's just a individual team sport, right? So, like, when the ball is hit to you, it is up to you to catch that thing.
Right.
But then you have to throw it to somebody else. So that camaraderie, that culture, that just togetherness on a field is huge for a team, because it's not one person. They just cannot possibly do it. So we've had a lot of opportunity to work together as a team, which I think will come out in the long run. So.
And it's different at the Division III level. This is a long time coming, because Division I, there's basically no restrictions.
Yeah.
And you can be with your teams year-round. You can have practices, all of that stuff. You don't have to have anything under the veil of leadership where you can be with your team. Division II is obviously scaled back a little bit, but they've had much more flexibility in there than Division III has. So I don't understand why it took so long for Division III to get to that point. I mean, they're going to throw the Division III philosophy, and it's a well-rounded experience, and it's academic, and I get that. But for a lot of these athletes, they're here to compete, and we restrict that so much that it takes away from the experience as opposed to adding to it, which I think the NCAA for a long time thought, and I'm sure I might get in trouble for that, but so be it.
There's also, I mean, I suppose you could make the argument that the NCAA was trying to scale it back on the D3 level just because they also want there to be some balance, between being a student athlete and being, the athlete side of it, being a student and then also being an athlete. But one of the things I think that I've, and this is one of the things I've got from talking to you and talking to TJ Oakes about this, is that it actually takes some of the heat off of the athletes a little bit, because they don't have to press so hard once they start in the season. It gives you an opportunity to kind of feel your way a little bit. Like Ellie said, I mean, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we get in a couple swings, we take a couple of ground balls, just kind of knock the rust off a little bit. So it gives them a little bit of an opportunity also to kind of, I don't want to say ease in, but it gives them a little bit more leeway in terms of mental preparation and stuff like that, just to kind of, be able to say, okay, I got some swings in the day, I took some ground balls, threw the ball around a little bit, worked on some infield stuff, whatever. So it gives them a little bit less of a hectic schedule. It doesn't, don't have to cram so much in because you've worked on some, even if it's just like some really basic stuff. It makes it different when you go into the preseason, when you've had extra time. on top of the fall ball thing, which is, obviously, basically you're running a season without playing an actual quote unquote official game. But it kind of gives the athletes a little bit more, I would think, a little bit more balance. And Ellie, maybe you could speak to that a little bit more than I have. But that, for me, that's how I would have taken it as even as a player. I would have been like, okay, they've given us some extra time, and it's kind of nice just to be able to, even if it's not super long, just to be able to kind of have some time to, be with my teammates and we're not hitting it super hard right now, but just to be able to be with them in kind of an atmosphere where we're getting a little bit of time in. I mean, I don't know if that made any difference for you or not, but that's how I would have taken it.
Yeah.
And I think,
Dynamite answer, Ellie.
yeah. And like there's a balance, right? And we tried to do the first semester schedule, but not add things onto it, right? So we on Tuesdays had leadership and Thursdays were practice. And if for some reason the weather was nice enough on Tuesdays, like we would add practice instead of leadership and go outside. But I think the big thing that a lot of student athletes, and you can kind of answer this question, we're afraid of, it's all of a sudden the coach is going to see the weather's nice and then they're going to want to go outside. And my Wednesday just went into practice instead of having time to do homework. So did it feel like it was impossible to be able to balance like you normally did? Or, and Allie's awesome at balancing anyways, but.
I think that while we had more practices, it was also not as bad because we went less, we had less in a week. Mm-hmm. So like I knew that, yeah, you might move it here, but then I'd have time to study where you took it from. So like if we were practicing on Thursday, but you moved it to Wednesday, I still have time on Thursday that you took away on Wednesday. And I think that as the semester went on and it got more stressful in school and all that stuff, we stopped. We were just doing like leadership because it was cold outside. We maybe had one practice inside. It was easier to get through the semester than it was before.
Having like softball to be able to kind of come to and a little break.
That too.
Well, it does. I mean, sometimes you realize that also when they're stressed out at school, their sport actually is kind of an escape.
Yep.
From if they're stressed out and there's projects happening, in Ellie's case, she's a science person, so you're going to have projects to do and stuff like that. And we talked about that before we went on camera. But it's a nice breakup because it gives you something to focus on besides, oh my God, I'm stressed out about this whole next week because I've got tests and I've got exams, papers, whatever. To be able to play your sport, and that's one of the advantages I think that student athletes do have, whereas normal students don't necessarily have that.
Right.
So and I think. That is also part of what makes student athletes I think achieve pretty well, or at least our athletic department achieve pretty well in the classroom, is that they do have that escape where they can sit there and kind of bond with their teammates over just say, hey, you know what, we're playing softball today. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It gives me a chance to kind of get away from this because this week has not been easy.
Right.
Stuff like that. And we don't talk about that a whole lot, but that's a big part of it.
No, I think it's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So, what does the season look like? Let's talk about it.
2024, away we go. So, yeah, I mean, we open up in Oshkosh like we normally do. I just love that tournament. I think it's great to go down there and play good competition. So game one is Oshkosh great. Like they're a phenomenal team. They're always a powerhouse in our region. Let's see where we're at, right? That's the kind of the whole point of having non-conference games. And we like to break it up into 3 parts of our season, right? So the first part is Oshkosh in Florida. And those are 14 games to just really kind of see where we're at and try to figure out our best lineup. I think the exciting thing for us this year, and Ellie can kind of talk to it a little bit, is I think we're deeper than we've ever been, just ability-wise. I don't think it's going to be the same lineup every day. I think it's going to be different and like, okay, like how do this person's pitching and this person's going to play this position. So now how do we get these people in the lineup? So I think it's going to be a lot more moving around to try to balance our offense and our defense, which I think are going to be strong this year. So I think that'll be exciting. So the first part of the season is really using those 14 games to try to figure out exactly how do we like have the best defense and the best offense combined together to be able to win games. And then the second part is conference, right? You have to win enough conference games to then hopefully get to that UMAC tournament, win that to go on to regionals. So the first part is what we're looking forward to right now because the second part is a long way away. So we're really building up to kind of get to Oshkosh and be able to have that very first game and just to see where we're at. So, right? Would you agree that it's kind of going to be a lot more of a rotation this year and see where everybody's at?
There's a lot of potential. Like, if you would ask me who I wanted where, I'd be like, well, they all do good. Like, sometimes, like, as a catcher, like, looking out in the field, there are people that you trust and people you're like, I don't know.
Don't hit it there.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe let's not let them hit it to the other side of the field. But I don't know. I look out and I'm like, you could put anyone there and be like, okay, cool. You can have the ball all day. That's fine. You take it. So.
Well, and the thing is also that you guys bring back so much of your lineup from last year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of notable, obviously, departures from last year to this year. But, I mean, you guys were a very, very potent lineup last year, and most of that is coming back. You know, I mean, most of the key contributors in your lineup are coming back, and you've got some good freshmen that came in. So it's going to be a different looking, you know, the team is going to look the same in a lot of ways, but it's also going to be much deeper, and there's going to be a lot more talent. And I know you and I have talked about this a bit. And so far, it sounds like the practices are going pretty well, based on what you've told me.
A lot of energy, which I think is great. It's easy to just show up and kind of go through the motions at practice, especially when you've been outside on a Tuesday and now you're inside on a Wednesday, but we really haven't had that issue. I would say we like to scrimmage on Sundays, so funny things pop up, right? Our team is really, really close this year, right? And it happened this Sunday, like, we like to play together, and they have so much fun playing together that sometimes they lose that competitiveness. It's like me versus you. So as I was telling the team, it's fun then because the coaches get to then kind of throw little curveballs in because you got to compete against somebody. So if it's harder for us to compete against each other, then you can compete against the coaches, and that's fun too. So it's just making sure that we keep that competitiveness while also making sure that we're focused and kind of bringing that energy. And so far, I mean, it's been great. I just enjoy going to practice and watching kind of the team go at it and get it done. So what have you thought about practice so far?
Well, we skipped all the rotational, what do you call it? The stations.
Yeah.
There's stations all the time, and we go station to station to station. And they're fun, but then you're with, like, the same people. Like, I think this year is the first year I actually was, like I was talking to Cam about it. Like, I saw Cam inside and was, like, by her for, like, 10 minutes. And I was like, this is weird because you're an outfielder and I'm an infielder, and we are never together inside. So it's fun to be able to, like, make connections with the outfielders and the infielders this early in the season when normally it's like we're split into two groups. They're going to do their rotations. We're going to do our rotations. We're going to switch. And now we're like all together. So it's like now I actually can talk to the outfielders. So it's fun.
And it's part of that advantage of having the 24 days. Yeah. Like we did all of that stuff in November and December, right? To make sure we're getting swings and our fundamentals between our corners and our middle infielders and our outfielders. So now, like, we can run things with the left side of the field instead of just infield and outfield. So, yeah, I think it goes back to kind of our practices are more energetic because we're just further along because of kind of the rule change. So,
you mentioned that there were some departures, and so I guess the elephant in the room is the pitching rubber.
Yeah.
And that's a big loss.
Sure,
you know, you lost your mail carrier there.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
you know, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think that we're going to distribute the innings different this year, obviously. I mean, Taylor was a phenomenal pitcher for us, especially when the game is on the line. I mean, she wanted to be in the circle, and as a pitcher, and you caught her, like that competitiveness, that edge is just huge. So I do think that it's going to be a little different this year, that there's probably going to be someone that opens and then someone that closes, which we didn't necessarily have to do the last few years. The nice thing is with our 5 pitchers, we have a really good – they're all different, which is huge.
Variety.
You know, the variety's big. It's hard when you have the same pitcher because you switch this 55-mile-per-hour fastball thrower with a 54-mile-per-hour fastball thrower, right? There's no different. Right. But a good example, we brought in a transfer, Bella. She throws hard, and then we have Emma Pillion that's returning as our lefty, and she spins the ball and gets that weak contact. So the combination between those two is just great. So I think you're going to see this year a lot different look from our pitching staff in how we do the innings and just kind of planning out things different. But hopefully it'll kind of create the same atmosphere that we've had and the same kind of consistency that we've had in the pitching circle the last few years. So
well, and I think this is the most amount of pitchers that you've had on a roster since you've been here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's usually been 2 or 3 I think that have basically been kind of carrying the mail for you, and now you've got 5 on the roster, so there's a little bit more depth, and there's a little bit more options now also to consider instead of, where last year you might, shuttle in. It was Taylor for the most part, and Emma would come in every so often, and then they would kind of spell each other. Now you've got 5 options, and, it'll be interesting because it gives you some extra options I know you haven't had before.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the nice thing is for us too, a lot of our pitchers play other positions and they can hit too. So it's figuring out if they're not pitching, do we need them in the field? Or if they're not pitching, do we need their bat in the lineup? And kind of figuring that stuff out. But it'll look different. I don't always think different necessarily a bad thing, right? It's tougher as a coach. It's a lot easier just to be like, all right, this person's pitching. Sounds good. Like, let's go out there. It's going to be a lot more feel this year of, okay, like, I don't know, second time around the order, they're starting to get hit a little harder. Is it time to make a change? So that'll be a little different, but I'm excited for a new challenge because the last thing you want kind of as a coach is to just do the same thing every year. So it'll be a new challenge. We'll certainly miss Taylor. You can't replace Taylor.
Right.
I mean, she's
Right.
phenomenal. Can't take anything away from her, especially in those big moments. She wants the ball, and I always love that about her. But it's a different look, and we'll kind of see what this season brings. I always come in here in the end of February or March and say one thing, and all of a sudden we're a completely different team by the time we get to UMAC in May. So, we'll kind of see how it all plays out. We have the pieces. We just have to figure out how the pieces work best. So.
Who are some of those other pieces?
Yeah, so we have 5 pitchers we mentioned. I think Bella, our freshman transfer, is going to be a huge part of that. We transferred in Bailey O'Donnell. Her sister Bree played women's basketball here. I think she's going to be a big piece. Sam Swartz and Georgia are sophomores that returning. They're going to have to take over in the circle a little bit. And then other freshman-wise, Indigo Fish is from Superior. She's a phenomenal athlete, and she's just a competitor. She's one of those ones, similar to probably Ellie, in a good
She's
way.
scary?
In a good way.
Like, you say punch goes who? You're like, what?
So she played hockey, so she's an enforcer.
Okay.
She's an enforcer. She's the kid you want on
If
the
I
team.
got in trouble and I need to call someone, I'm calling her. Like, come fight for me.
Yes.
Come on.
She's awesome. So she's going to be a huge part of our lineup. Defensively, I don't know where she plays. So a good example of what it looks like, Ellie, for example, if Ellie's not catching, I want her bat in the lineup, right? So does that make her the DP or does that make her the third baseman? And if she's the third baseman, then what do we do with Carly Stuckmeyer, another freshman that's a phenomenal third baseman? And if Carly's going to second base, then where is Lily Hansen or Sam Swartz going to go? Because they're also a big part of our team. So that's kind of the rotation we're talking about this year. And I think we're going to be 14, 15, 16 strong that are going to get consistent playing time, which is awesome.
Well, in that lineup, I mean, you're looking at the players that come back. You've got Zoe, Jenna Hoops is coming back. You've got Ellie. You've got Larissa. I mean, these are all players that are hitting 350 and above, and a couple of them have power. Mackenzie Lesh is another one.
She was hitting 9 for us last year, right?
And she hit almost 400 and had 4 home runs. So. There's a lot of options. We were talking about the options in the circle. You've got a lot of options in that lineup too, trying to figure out where people are going to be. So,
and I don't think it's going to be we figure it out game 1 and that's it forever. Like Ellie hit 5, Ellie's hit 3. Ellie led off in the UMAC tournament. Like it's just you don't know. Like there's sometimes parts that work really well in a season because we have 39 games, right? So I don't think you can get stubborn. Like it's okay that your lineup from game 1 is different from your lineup from game 39, right?
Right, yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be all figured out and nice and wrapped up like it has in the past, that we're just like, okay, this is our lineup and we're going to roll with it and let's see what happens. We saw that a little bit more last year. I mean, Izzy Lingle came in and got the game-winning hit in the championship.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
That was
as
awesome.
a pinch
That was
hitter.
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we have even more of that this year because if you're talking about who's going to come in and hit, Bella can hit, Jenna Hoops can hit, we know that. Zoe and Ellie have to be in the lineup. We know Izzy can hit. So all of these people are fighting for one DP spot and to be in the field. Right. And whoever doesn't get in there is our first, second, third person off the bench to hit. I mean, that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it'll be exciting to kind of see how it all works. And I think our team this year especially is really pulling for each other. in a different way than we've probably had in the past. So I'm excited to kind of see how that works. Her class is just a really big class that are now upperclassmen for the first time. So they are having the chance to lead, and I think they're doing a phenomenal job. And Ellie is one of our junior captains. I give her a lot of credit. She is, I would say, at times has to be the bad cop, which is an uncomfortable position for her, but she does it really well.
They're getting better at it.
For sure, and she builds a relationship she needs, but there always has to be someone that's okay being like, no, this is the standard and we need to work to that. And Ellie's done a great job doing that for us this year. Larissa Snyder's another one of our captains, and she kind of works with that too. And then Zoe kind of keeps, as another captain, keeps our energy up, I'd say, and kind of keeps everything positive, which you definitely need too. So the three of them as captains are doing a really great job leading the team.
Well, it's interesting too because those three personalities are very different.
Very different.
Really
they're
different.
all they're all very different. I mean, Larissa's very focused.
Mm-hmm.
If you sit down and start talking to Larissa about softball, she'll talk to you about it for a long time.
Yeah.
But you get the sense that she's very, very focused on. Okay, we need to do this to be successful. We need to, and Zoe is just, she's happy, she's smiley, she's one of those people that keeps everybody kind of light. And Ellie, she's kind of the little bit more the quiet, silent type. Well, not quite as
Has
silent.
anyone ever called you that before?
No, that's
Well, like in the time that I've gotten a chance to know you, a little more soft spoken at times, but
Oh boy, you and Matt have to
yeah, we
hang
have to hang out more.
a little
Hang
more.
out more. But I mean, the personalities are very different
Yeah.
between all of them, and that's sort of I think what makes up good captains though too is that you have to have all those different personalities in order to kind of get things done. And even the relationship between Zoe and Larissa is completely different. Like the personalities are like I mean I want to say it's apples to oranges, but they have a very different approach. And so when you have that, and you throw Ellie in the mix, you've got three different approaches to how the game should be played. That's I think when you have that kind of leadership in a group, it's more of a strength than anything else.
Yeah.
And I don't know Ellie if you feel the same way, but that's when you have to have, like you said, now you're looked on as the bad cop. I don't know if that's.
I mean, I think
The
that
strong, silent
Yeah,
bad cop.
the strong silent
the
bad
silent
cop.
one. I think that we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses, so that's helpful at times. Like
Yeah.
there are times when like someone's upset and I'm like, Zoe, she's upset, you should go talk to her. I can tell, but I'm not going to say the right thing. So like knowing that we can lean on each other when things get hard is
Right.
helpful.
Yeah. Do you try to keep things light as a captain? I mean, do you try to keep things as light as possible? I mean, is that your approach, or are you more of a
It depends on the day.
depends on the day? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think sometimes it's a little intense and sometimes it's not intense at all.
Okay.
So the funny thing about Ellie that people don't know is that she's a complete morning person.
I love the morning.
She loves.
Really?
So we have an 8 to 10 practice tonight. So she'll
Okay.
definitely struggle energy wise. I would say, is that fair?
Probably.
So she's gonna need Zoe to help her, right,
Okay.
and stay energy. But that's the nice thing about having a team together. As long as we've been together, like we're fully aware of each other's strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
And how, like, this might not be Ellie's practice to shine as a captain, but she knows that she can lean on other people to do that. And it's funny because just like our captains, like our coaching staff is all very different in that sense too, that like some of us love mornings and some of us love night times. And that's just, I think, like you said, like that makes a successful team. And
It does.
It's nice that we work a lot in leadership, especially this year, on just getting to know each other's strengths and weaknesses and not being afraid to not be perfect. Like, I'm having a bad day today. Like, I need your help. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that, right? One bad day can't turn into 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
but we're human and we have emotions, and sometimes they're not perfect and sometimes we're tired and we have bad days. But
Yeah.
I think this year we worked really hard on learning that about each other and our signals and kind of figuring out how to help each other. So
Yeah, communicating it.
communicating,
Like,
yeah.
you can have a bad day and bring it into practice, but, like, I don't know. I told you about this the other day. I was catching for Georgia, and I was not having a good day. And Georgia's blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Georgia, I really don't want to talk right now. And I was like, I'm not having a good day. It's not, you didn't do anything, but, like,
Right.
I just don't want to talk right now. You could talk. I'm just not going to respond. She was like, okay. And we had a great bullpen session. Like, it was fine. I just had to set the boundary. Like, I don't want to talk.
But that's part of being a teammate, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's part of being a team captain. Is sometimes you do have to do that.
Yeah.
Because I had to do that. I was a team captain. I'm one of those. It's just like, look, okay, this isn't the greatest time. You can talk and do your thing, but for me, I'm trying to zero in on what I'm trying to do here, and because I just want to get this day over with.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. I want to go to bed.
Yeah, exactly. But that's that's part of being a leader, though, is being able to be mature enough to say that and to say, look, it's nothing personal. I'm not mad at you.
Yeah.
I'm not upset with anything that you've done. I'm just having a really bad day and I'm really tired right now. And we'll catch up on this later on. Can we talk about this later? Like that.
Exactly.
But that's that maturity factor, right? And that's what's nice with having Ellie and Zoe with you, is the fact that they're juniors now. When you're coming as a freshman, you're still trying to feel it out and try to figure out, okay, how am I going to communicate with my teammates if I'm having a bad day? Am I just going to be lose my mind altogether? Because that doesn't help anything. Yeah. But now, you're 3 years in, and now you know each other a little bit better. You know how the program works. You know what Coach Fracker's expectations are. Here's how we got to go about it. This is just how we're going to do it. Yeah. And so that's a little bit of that's part of the maturing process. You go from a freshman up to an upperclassman, and being able to just be up and say, hey, look, here's the story, And I get the sense that each captain you learn that as you go along. Everybody approaches that a little bit differently. I was always somebody that tried to do that. I mean, I was one of those guys that, if I felt my emotions were getting the best of me in a game, I would ask to come out for a second, and I got to take a deep breath here, quick, for a second. That was when I was playing basketball mostly, but, yeah, I mean but that's a maturity factor again that you just don't have when you have younger players. And when you have Georgia's a sophomore, and you've got freshmen coming in, they're not going to know. So you got to have the upperclassmen or the leaders actually step up and just be able to one to say that. And I'm glad that story I like that story because it shows, again, as a captain, that you had that maturity to be able to say, hey, look, let's just get through the session. And it was a really good one.
It was good.
Yeah. But I was glad to hear that maturity, though, that that you were able to say, hey, look, we can talk about this maybe tomorrow and in the morning or something when I'm feeling better. But right now I'm just trying to get through this session and then we'll move on.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's really fun. They were my first recruiting class, so now we get to see them as juniors, and it's been a quick 3 years. But it's fun to watch, especially their group, mature into just great leaders and just fantastic young women, and that's just been a really rewarding part. Which, yes, wins and losses are great. I hate losing, just like Ellie hates losing, right? We all do. But when you talk coaching, that's the best part of it. Right. So it's just been really rewarding, especially this year with the junior class, to watch them come into themselves kind of as juniors and upperclassmen. So.
Yeah.
There's some lead by example there too. I mean, we were joking a little bit before we went on about 2 black eyes and stitches, and yet you're out there still calling a game, and you're still going up and getting hits and everything. That's
what catchers do.
That's a lead by example thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So for people that don't know the story, Ellie got black eyes because she got hit by the stitch of the ball in her nose. I'm just making sure we understand why.
Before the game started.
Before the game started.
That's right. This is during warm-ups, right?
This is during warm-ups, yeah. So just making sure where that context comes from. And Ellie's such a
You can get the whole story if you watch the lap we did last year, because we did talk about that.
Yeah, we did.
It's a great story. But Ellie is somebody that she wants to be on the field every single inning of every single game. And sometimes we have to pull her back because she will catch every inning of all 39 games this year if we let her. Without a complaint, with the most competitive spirit ever. Does that mean her body's in the best place for the UMAC tournament? No. It's just like pitchers, right? You can roll a pitcher out there and they can throw every inning of every game, but are they in the best spot physically to be able to then compete for a championship? Right. But I love Ellie's competitive spirit, especially when it's directed at not intramural volleyball and our roommates a little bit. So when it's in the right spot, it's phenomenal.
I think that was a call out right there.
I've heard all kinds of stories about intramural volleyball.
Okay, here, time
Are we going to be going against each other in the dodgeball tournament on Thursday?
I hope
Just
not.
wait.
Just wait.
I have a competitive itch that needs to be scratched.
Oh, here we go. See, this is team captain stuff right here.
The volleyball thing, though, they were mad because I wasn't staying in my spot. I was like, the ball is moving. I'm going to move to the ball. I don't understand. You're there. I'm there. The ball is going there. So I'm going to go there.
Which is not what you're supposed to do in volleyball. It's 6-year-old soccer.
Well, then how does the ball get hit?
The person standing in the spot the ball goes to is supposed to be that
What if it goes in between 2 spots?
Then the people communicate to get it, not the third person running from across the court to get it.
It's a good pass.
I feel like we're about to go, because for those of you who don't know, before we went on camera, we were all, me and Coach Fracker and Ellie were sitting in Coach Fracker's office, and we got into this debate about pancakes. Now,
Please be on my side.
well, so I walked in, and the question was, Ellie asked me if I put my syrup on top or around the outside of the pancakes. Coach Fracker and I both agreed that
Hold
we put
on,
it on.
let John respond.
Yeah, just
what do
answer
you
the
think,
question.
Garves?
Yeah,
Where
do you
syrup?
pour the syrup on top or on the outside?
On top.
Sorry, Ellie. Ellie was very adamant.
She was adamant that you go around the outside. Yeah,
into the
absorb,
pancakes,
yeah.
and we explained that's exactly what we want to happen.
But when you,
And you put it on top and it absorbs
This is what happens
Yeah.
in
then
Coach
by the
Fracker's
time you
office
get
on
to want to
Tuesdays.
eat it, you have to put more syrup on.
That's
so
not a bad
you
thing.
could just have it on the side
Or do both.
and just dunk it right in and call her good.
Just do both, so then it's like the syrup is like absorbed.
Then your
and
ratio
then
of
you
And
syrup
then
to
you-
pancake is syrup pancake.
Yeah, please.
Don't you want it like?
No. Nope.
See, now I will say this, okay? I do agree with you on that. You want the ratio right,
Yeah.
but so I only pour on once. I don't pour on anymore.
But then by the
So-
time you get through the pancake, the ending is dry. All your syrup is gone.
All your syrup is gone. So, how big is the stack now we're talking about?
What's an average stack?
Well,
Usually three.
Three?
3. Yeah. So, I mean, if you pour on enough. Now, the argument here, by the way, is that the pancake itself is kind of spongy, right? So it soaks up.
It's meant
If
to
you have a
absorb.
Yes.
stack of 3, all the syrup goes in the first pancake. Well, you got 2 more pancakes down there.
Well, yeah, but that's why you cut it up.
And you
to
just
cut it
keep
first.
pouring more syrup on?
No, you cut
No, you know what
it,
I do? I
and then
actually
you
lift.
just-
Like I used to lift them up and then put like.
You guys are
underneath.
doing so much work. You just put it on
That
the
is
side,
so
dip
true.
it in, eat it.
Typically,
Yeah.
I
Efficient.
do the work that doesn't make any sense, and then
Yeah.
forget that there's a more logical way to go.
And there is a wild
I've
card.
logical
honestly
way.
never given it this much thought.
Well, and there's a wild card in this conversation that we had too. What do you do with the butter? You put it right on top of the first one, or do you like butter
you
them
have to
individually?
evenly distribute the butter.
Right. Yeah. So
Some people at the stable don't use any butter.
Coach Fracker accused Ellie of not even using the butter.
Well, she
Which-
twitched her nose.
She ran it off my face.
She twitched her nose in the way that tells me that I don't really do it, but I'm gonna get involved in this argument.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean,
No,
but-
you evenly distribute the butter
okay, yeah. 'cause-
before you add syrup.
well, I
obviously.
do that too. Like the first step is the butter, and then the lift up, and
Right.
then the syrup,
Yep.
and the lift up. That's what I do.
But I don't do the lift up on the syrup. No,
No, you don't do the lift up. On the syrup? You just do it on the,
I just-
straight on the top.
right over the top.
Okay. Okay.
Let it soak in. Eat a little bit. Add some more.
And
See?
But I'm totally okay with my ratio being like this.
yeah, I'm okay with that too.
well, another thing is, I mean, I can see what Ellie's talking about though, because I don't know personally anyone who has done it. I'd like to actually kind of observe this phenomenon, but I could understand her point though about doing it around the outside though too.
So you just
I
dump it.
I
get it.
understand it, but it's,
Yeah,
it's not a preference.
It's not a preference for you.
No.
Okay.
I'm going
No
to
one
eat
is
more
saying you're-
pancake than you are because I'm going to have way more time to eat more pancakes.
That is completely fair.
You over
is-
here, syrup. More
Yeah, because
syrup.
I like to make sure everything's set before I eat, because I don't have to do it twice.
Exactly. And Fracker's point was that she actually cuts up the
I feel like
pancakes.
we
so
should have
that
done
it-
this on location today.
Yeah, we should have gone over to Perkins.
Yeah,
okay.
we could test it out.
And we could actually go over to Perkins and get a couple sacks of pancakes and see how this works.
There's no wrong way to eat pancakes. The
Correct.
only wrong thing is
No.
not eating pancakes. I think
Correct.
we can all agree with
Correct.
that.
Very correct.
Okay.
Correct. That is also correct.
And the
Yes.
debate about whether it's pancakes or French toast, that's for another day.
They're 2 different things.
They are,
Yeah.
but what's better?
Why do you have to choose what's better when you can have 2 different things?
They are two different things. But the question is,
Doesn't it
what's
just depend
better?
on what you're in the mood for, though?
Usually, yes.
Yeah?
Usually,
I mean,
yes.
am
But
I-
you do
am I
have-
wrong
You
about
do
this?
have the people that will say, no, French toast is better than pancakes. Is it?
They're the same. They're different
No, you're not
things.
saying.
You can't compare apples and oranges.
This is true. That
is
They're
true.
very different. Well, then the other question I asked her is Belgian waffles. Like, how do you put the syrup and the butter on your Belgian waffles? And the point is that waffles are a different story now.
Because they're crunchy, so you just get it on there. And
So one more time. That's how you do this.
Yeah, exactly. So if I ever see Ellie doing that, I'll be like, she must
You're
be
fine.
eating a waffle.
Just it's a breakfast.
Ellie's
the
eating.
hotel.
She's eating a waffle.
Yeah.
But that was the basis of our conversation. But
Heck of a debate down there.
yes, it was pretty intense. Like we had a pretty long talk about that. I mean, we talked about different types of syrup and butter and waffles, Belgian waffles, and then we talked about the pancakes. So it was pretty involved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Coming next week, Twizzlers versus Red Vines. I mean,
Oh no, that debate. I don't know. Like,
Twizzlers, girls.
you can use the Twizzlers as a straw.
You can.
You can do that. That is true.
Dual
That's true.
function.
that is.
That is
I've never tried it, but you could.
I like it. Dual function.
Yeah.
It's very scientific of you.
It is. It is. She's very scientific in her thought process.
is.
That's one of the
Yeah,
things
she
I've learned
is.
about Ellie.
Yeah, in a
She's
good
very
way.
analytical.
In like
Yeah.
the last 2 hours that we've had an actual conversation.
Yeah, well, like it's
Yeah,
been.
now that you know she's not
I've,
really
well,
quiet
I've
anymore.
heard the stories though, because you've told me some of the stories, and she's like, "Yeah, Ellie's very analytical."
Very
like that's
Yeah.
which
It's
is
a good
fine.
thing. As a catcher, I feel like you have to be analytical. Like,
Right.
It's hard not to be analytical when you're the one in charge of basically controlling the entire field. So it would be very difficult to be a catcher and not analyze everything at all times.
Just that project that she was doing last semester.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I would not have the patience to do that.
No.
I can't believe that you did it, but that's really impressive though.
Yeah,
So like I
Ellie's,
can see why.
Ellie's a phenomenal student. She's a great softball player, and she also holds down several jobs. One of them at the MWC front desk, and then she also is a transporter at the hospital. So, yeah,
it's a
she
fun
is a busy girl, but does a phenomenal job.
Well, let me ask this then. Like, what is okay? So now you're in your junior year. You've got another year to go after this. What is your long-term plan then post school? Because
I just figured this out like a month ago.
did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The plan, I'll probably have to take a gap year, but I'm going to go to med school
Okay.
for emergency medicine. That's the plan.
Okay. Are you one of those people that changes your plans pretty frequently?
Well, I can't really change a plan if you don't have it, right?
Well,
Yeah.
that's true. So you
so
you
no.
do have a plan. Okay. So this is like this plan. Is this the first plan that you've put together?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was a little delayed in wanting to put a plan together.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then she did, thankfully, and it's going to be great. She's going to be phenomenal at emergency
Oh,
medicine.
Yeah.
so.
I could definitely.
Except
see
when
that.
it's happening to me.
Except when it's happening to you, like a nose injury.
Well, you know what though,
There's a
but
whole
that's
story that goes with it. It
that's
was a
not
phenomenal
necessarily,
story.
I would say, an emergency situation, other than the fact that she has to catch the game.
It was an
But-
emergency situation. It wasn't, but people thought it was
In
an
my eyes,
emergency
it was.
situation. Ellie,
I
at
did
one
see the
point,
picture.
called Morgan a liar, as heard in the walk around, right? And then she was standing there. This entire time, I just pull out a new lineup
didn't
card.
move.
I didn't move. Well, Morgan was there. Coach Hunker is a volunteer fireman. Half the team ran to Ellie. Her parents, I looked over and they did not seem all that worried.
They disowned me.
They did not seem. So her parents were there too. So I hear, oh no, Ellie broke her nose. I'm like, okay, well, time to pull out a new lineup card. Just finished that one.
Well, like, do you come from a family of healthcare workers? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, my mom works at the hospital.
Okay, see, this is why there was no reaction, because
Yes.
my mom was a hospital nurse, and man, if I had my arm ripped off, she would
Yes.
not have responded. She would have been like, "Oh, okay, well."
This is
Better
not
call
also
the ambulance.
the
Like-
first time that Ellie has bled either. Like she hit her
Right.
head on a diving board, so her parents got that phone call. That's what before she came
FaceTimed
in.
my mom.
You FaceTime
at work.
your
I
mom,
was like,
yeah.
"Hey, mom."
Yeah.
Guess what happened to me?
I got that picture in between your
Yeah.
senior year in high school and when you came here as a freshman. Hey, coach, look what I did. She's had like the strips right here.
That's funny.
On
Yeah.
the kitchen counter.
Health-
On the
Healthcare worker
kitchen
parents.
counter. Yeah.
They don't respond to anything. Like, my sister had her jaw broken and ended up having to go to the hospital. She got a serious concussion during a soccer game she was playing against she was playing for the state team in Minnesota against the state team from Wisconsin. And this girl came over and just cleaned her clock and broke her nose and her jaw up here, and she bled everywhere. And she was pretty much delirious because she had a concussion. And my mom's response was, "Well, okay, I guess we got to go to the hospital." Like, it's like,
Because you're gonna go there and you're gonna sit for hours and hours.
yeah, exactly. And-
7 different people are gonna come and ask you the same questions. That's just
Yeah.
how the process works. But like, it's just-
Yeah, I mean, but it was very like healthcare workers as parents. Nothing ever like you could have the worst injury in the world, and they'll be like, "Yep, all right, well, let's go to the hospital. We got to go to the ER and have this looked at." You know, they never get upset about anything because they see it all day long, every day, and they know it. Whereas you have the parents that sometimes will just freak out and like run on the field or do whatever. Healthcare parents don't do that.
Ellie was right back behind there the next day, so catching away.
And that's why my parents would have been like, "Yeah, good for you. You still played. Broken nose and all." It's like, okay, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we were.
I'm glad I made you proud, Mom.
The first game we were down and Ellie was on the bench. I said, Ellie, grab your helmet. You're going to hit. And I was like,
yelled-
oh my
she-
God.
no.
I was like, I should have asked her parents if they were
Time out.
comfortable
She
with her
goes-
going into this
She
game.
looked at me and went, "Are you good?" And I was like, "Yeah."
No, are you good?
And I was like,
That's because her first response is like, yeah. I said, no. Yeah.
she was like,
We were winning the game. Then we ended up, I think, tied or losing. So we needed Ellie to go in there to get a hit. And she did, which was great. But yeah, I'm intense during games. I'm competitive. I like to win.
I can't tell at all.
Yeah.
No.
I'm very,
Yeah, I can't
I'm
tell
very
at all.
quiet, but yeah. It's so funny. Some things that you guys remember because it happens to you. Like, there's so much stuff as a coach that happens in a game that I like. It's not that I don't necessarily remember those moments, but I just don't vividly remember them as much as the stories that I hear back from players at times. So.
Yeah. That's what you said. Are you good? Yes, coach.
And you were. You got up there and you got a hit. So you were good.
Yep, exactly.
So it worked out great, and we ended up winning that game. And then you caught the next game. Then you had to turn your entire head to be able to look at me because of your stitch in your eyesight. Yeah,
You're over there. I was like,
yeah, because normally, like, you could just see out the side of your eye, but when you have a stitch there, no. So she just kept looking at me with those two buck eyes and the stitch.
I'll have to find that photo.
It's a
great photo.
Yeah.
It's a great one. It was the debate what went on the wall out here, but she picked her one that she had a home run at home, which I love too.
That one was great too.
That's a good one.
The two arms in the air.
Yeah.
That was
I
pretty
was
cool.
flying.
Yeah. Called her fairy picture. It's very cute. She looks like she's trying to take off.
Yeah, I was off the ground.
Yeah, I know
You
you
were?
were. I
You
know.
are.
It looks like I now, like, it's old, but in the 90s they had like that one fairy thing that was like in the frame or in like the little stand that you hit the button, it goes.
Oh yeah, they flew into the
Yes,
fireplace.
yes, that's exactly it, and that's what it always reminded me of. That little.
But I love those moments of like exhilaration. You know, it's like that
Yeah.
moment where you're just like, that's the best thing
Yeah, it
ever.
was awesome.
You know, and you get that expression when you hit the,
Yeah.
you know, because Zoe had it when she hit the grand slam against Bethany.
Oh, that
And
was an adrenaline rush.
yeah.
I was watching. I was like, yes! I don't have to hit now.
Were you on deck in that one?
The joys of hitting behind Zoe. That's
I
why
love
you
hitting
like
behind Zoe.
Zoe so much. Oh, she took care of it. Perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks,
exactly.
Zoe.
Yeah,
Good
thanks,
job.
Zoe.
Shout out to the roommate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
yeah.
you, Zoe.
Final thoughts.
See, this is why I love this team, though. It's just this entire thing because we went from talking about the season and the team and the captains and the kind of the chemistry between the players and all different options, lineups, pitching, all that kind of stuff. But this is what makes it cool. These little stories, that we have where we're talking about everything from pancakes to hitting home runs and Ellie catching with two black eyes. I mean, that's what makes college athletics cool to me.
Right.
Is that kind of stuff because at the end of the day we can talk about all this stuff and we do care about it. But at the end of the day, also, it's really cool to get to know the human beings that are behind it all, and that's the best part for me. That's why I do this job, and I know John, similar for you too. That's why we do what we do.
Right.
So I want to thank both of you for coming in and being so honest and being so forthright because in the past your team has always been that way, and may that continue because I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, we appreciate obviously being here and getting to share a little bit about our season, and I'm glad Ellie got to come on too. She had a little break in the day, which is great. I know she has class coming up here, but yeah, I think that it's going to be an exciting season. I think our team will look a little different in the way we go about things, but I'm excited to see how the juniors and then Jenna and Jess kind of help lead the team. And as we always say, like, we are just kind of steering the ship whatever direction the rest of the team wants to go. So I'm excited to kind of see the direction that the 2024 team kind of leads it. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
All right. That'll do it for this week's episode. We want to thank Ellie and Coach Fracker from the softball team for coming by. For the Big Sound Matt Johnson, I am John Garver. Thank you for watching Eye of the Swarm.